Hi there, I am Sarah Kolis. Welcome to the Dressing Up podcast, where we talk about all things bridal, dresses, and general dressing up topics. I love to encourage women to dress up while expressing their personal style with confidence on how to do so. Visit sarahkolis.com to book a bridal alterations fitting or even inquire about designing the custom couture bridal gown of your dreams. I'm so excited to talk to you about this next topic. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. We're back with another episode. Today, we have Nate with J&N Studios, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with him today. Nate, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. This is really exciting and fun, and I appreciate that you thought of me and reached out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here. So, you and I were just talking about, Nate and I were just at a wedding together on this past Saturday for Jen and Brad, and it was fabulous, an absolutely gorgeous wedding at the Henry Ford
Hmm.
Museum. And it was great. And it was the first time I did day of styling all day long. So I was there on the back end of things with vendors all day long.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about how that is his every day of work when he goes and does a wedding, just like all these other vendors as well. And just how much work that is, and how you have to give it your
Oh,
all
yeah.
day long. You not eating, not drinking, and just being there for the couple, which is so important. And I'm happy to do it. But it was just really, I just had a big realization about just how much work goes into the back end of things. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. It is a lot, isn't it? I mean, it's a full day, and the little time that we have for breaks goes by so fast because we're also aware of what's happening and want to be ready to pivot and move at any time to cover or capture, what we have to do. But yeah, like you mentioned, on your feet, that particular wedding we just did was, a pretty long one, even longer than my normal, which was about, 13, 14 hours total. So it was a lot. And, the adrenaline kicks in, the joy of being there kicks in. Like you're so excited for them and what is coming their way and what you want to anticipate that I think it's a driving force and it keeps us moving. And then by the time we are able to sit down for a little bite to eat, we realize we haven't had any water or used the restroom in 10 hours. And it's not because we're gluttons for punishment, but that's just the pace of a wedding day. When people throw the cliche out that, wedding day goes by fast, it's true. It's really true. Because there's so much going on, and, from the planning side of things, you want to keep a flow, keep people interested and connected. So for us as the vendors, and especially for me as a photographer, we're always trying to be a step ahead of that, anticipating what's coming because we're so invested and involved in the timing of things so that the moments that are happening are going to happen beautifully. They're going to happen without rushing to do it, without oh my God, I hope I don't miss this shot. We're always kind of a couple steps ahead to do
Yeah.
that. And it takes a lot of energy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot on you. I was there, helping Jen with, fluffing the dress and making sure the dress was all taken care of, anything she needed. Of course, Brad too. But it was so funny. I was so sore the next day. So just, I was just like, oh wow, like that was a long day, but it does just like blink by. But yeah, I mean, you as the photographer, you have to think even further ahead. I was very in the moment, but you're like, yes, I got to make sure like I eat my dinner so I don't miss this shot that's coming next and all those things. You're
Right.
working. It's a lot.
We're working. And I
So,
wasn't laughing at you. I was kind of chuckling at the realization of how much work it really goes into it. And for those who, don't do this all the time, you realize it's a labor of love, and it takes a village and a team to make it happen. And Jen and Brad looked amazing.
oh my
I mean,
gosh.
all day long,
Yes.
just amazing. So it was so easy to capture them and photograph and let them have fun. I mean, that's really what it's all about is, you know, what I want for every couple is to know you're being taken care of. Day of, just show up. Show up and have a great time. We're going to take care of you. The fact that you were there made our jobs like 100% easier because you were aware of the dress and how things were going to happen, and the best angles to fluff it out at or arrange things. So Like that was a dream.
Oh,
I dare
good.
I say we'd want you at every wedding, but
Yeah,
you're
I'll
like, I
come.
don't know if I'm going to do that.
I'll
Yeah,
follow you around, Nate. I loved it. It
cool.
was so much fun.
Very
And
cool.
she had a fabulous team. All the vendors, just fabulous.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was great. Okay, so we are on the Dressing Up podcast after all. So I ask all my guests this question, and it is, what is your favorite item in your closet right now?
I have one that I thought of, and it's something I don't wear very often, but I do in the fall into winter time. And it's a camel coat, trench, nice heavy weight from Jacobson's way back in the day. So it's a vintage coat,
Wow.
not a pea coat, but a nice, I think it's 2, 3 button down the middle, very good shoulder line. That was given to me by my father-in-law who passed away a couple years ago from cancer. And years ago, he just like, hey, I don't wear this thing anymore. He used to work at Jacobson's in the early 80s when he first got married and came to Michigan. And I think he fell in love with that coat and
Wow.
bought it. And then I inherited it. Now it has special meaning because it's associated with him. He was someone I deeply cared about and miss very much. So now I'm thinking of that piece as like, I'm gonna hold on to this. Maybe my son will like it, or at least that we have it to talk about. And it still looks great. Like this to be true. Something of quality is
Mm-hmm.
always going to be of quality, no matter
Yes,
how many
it's
years
gonna
go by.
last.
It's going to last. It looks good with jeans. It looks good with dress pants. I mean, it's just so versatile
Yeah.
and it still holds up so well and very well made. It has like no fraying, there's no worn out patches yet, like some vintage pieces can have. So
Mm-hmm. Still in
that's
good
my
condition.
that's my favorite piece that I always think about, even though I don't wear very often.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that too. When you have a clothing piece that has a meaning behind it, it's not just the item. That's fabulous. Now, when I think of your photography style, Nate, I think of luxury for sure. You just have these images that are very artistic, have that very, like, I want to say almost regal element to it, where it's just very striking. Like the couple's just always very like, oh my God, that like took my breath away. So how would you describe your photography style? And I also want to know if you could tell our listeners, this is kind of interesting, a little bit about your background and how that now relates to what you do.
Yeah, well, let's start with the background first because
Okay.
it's a nice segue into how my style has developed. So my background, I was a hobbyist photographer. I mean, literally when I was 14 years old, which I think
Wow.
most people start to come into their own and find hobbies and, you know, have something that they find as being a source of passion. And I had an older friend of the family who had an old Nikon film camera, and he, offered me to look through it, and I looked through the viewfinder, and you know, those old cameras just had an interesting texture and haze to the viewfinder, and it made everything look very cinematic. And I was in love from that moment on. But of course, as a kid, as a hobbyist, you just do it for fun. You don't think it's ever going to be part of your career or everyday life. So I studied architecture and interior design here in Michigan, and I practiced for a little bit in Ann Arbor where I live, just enough to hate it, just enough
Oh,
to
wow.
really dislike what was the reality of that line of work, which is the office work, the paperwork. The creative side was so minimal, and office politics and stuff. I think it just kind of was like, oh, this isn't great. Well, at the time, in around 2004, 2005, it's my wife who actually started our business. She studied design and art and photography. As some of us photographers, we start by photographing people we know. And so a friend of the family was like, "Hey, we're getting married. I want to take some photos, all on film." And so she started that up until about 2015, 16, and she retired because the kids were here, or coming, I should say. And so it's been my baby ever since. But really having that background in architecture and design, I would say the fundamentals of art, no matter what medium or discipline, it's all the same. So it's about composition. and scale and light and shadow and dimension and feeling, definitely part of it. Even architecture is about feeling. How do people engage with a space or design and how that makes them feel, whether it's functional or just beautiful. So all that goes into how I've developed my style and how I see, a wedding day. It's about everything in the background that is going to make people look and feel their best. It's so important that everyone has a moment or an image to look back at and they're like, yes, I look good. I feel good. Or that moment and that memory is just that much more enhanced because someone took the time to look at the composition and the lighting. It wasn't a random snapshot. And so for me, I'm always, like we talked earlier, anticipating the moments that are coming. And I'm looking at that in a multitude of different ways in literally seconds, which is okay, where are the sight lines? Where's the good light? Is there any distractions that I should avoid? How are they going to move through that space? And how far away should I be depending on my camera choices, my lens choices? All that happens in literally nanoseconds to either anticipate a moment's coming or to create an image for the two of them. And so it's so nice in some ways that I still practice what I learned formally, but through the medium of photography.
Yeah, that's so interesting how, like you were just saying, like how multiple art forms all kind of come from the same elements, which, I put into my dresses too, all those elements that you mentioned. I just wanted to take a moment for Megan's wedding dress photo shoot that we did together last year. So I hired Nate in to photograph my sister-in-law's wedding dress that I just die over every time I see it. And Nate did a fabulous job photographing that. I made a little book even from her photos,
Oh,
and
wow.
I
Thank
just
you.
love it. And
That's
I
so
loved your
cool.
perspective and everything. So yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for that.
Thank you. That was so fun. It was so fun to be, I don't know, in a very playful setting and have this amazing dress kind of come to life. And obviously do it in a very editorial way, which sometimes we can't always do in a wedding day,
Mm,
is to actually really
right.
slow down and think through, every aspect of it and not just have a still representation of the dress, but to have her move in it. Like we talked earlier about how important that is, movement,
Yeah.
and play with the design, play with the silhouette. And I mean that dress was incredible. I mean, just the train and the way it flowed out was dynamite. And she had pockets.
And she had pockets. The
And she
bride
had
just love
pockets.
pockets. I,
Every
I
bride
love
should
it.
have a pocket. Yeah.
So if our
So thank
listeners
you. It
want
was
to see
really
what
fun.
that work looked like from Nate's photography and my one of my custom couture gowns, you can check it out on my Instagram. It's plastered all over. Now, as far as visuals on a wedding day for our brides and grooms listening, where do you think as a photographer the money is best spent? Is it florals? Is it, should there be an emphasis on, what would those things be to you that you think makes the most impact?
We talked briefly about this earlier. It really boils down to experience. To be honest, I've been doing this, for almost 20 years full time. And the trends have come and they've gone and they've come back again,
Mm-hmm.
which now I'm starting to sound like the old guy in the room. But I think experience trumps all of that. It's really the most important thing to connect over for a couple to think through and decide together because it becomes the benchmark that all other decision making can come through and be filtered through. So even when it comes to design elements and florals and lighting, like that should have a direct correlation to experience
Mm-hmm.
and mood and vibe. We love that word vibe, but it means a lot because you're creating an event. You're having this moment to share with others. It's not just the two of you going out for dinner. even though that can be an amazing experience and event too.
Yeah.
So, for me, the stuff comes as a result of really identifying what matters most. What the experience is going to be for the two of them as a couple, how they're translating that for family and friends, what elements are going to create feeling, because feeling enhances memory. And I think they really go hand in hand, especially in the eyes of photography. When you look back at an image, you're seeing not just a static moment. Hopefully there's a lot more depth to that, and that there's memory involved, and the memory is enhanced by, oh yes, I remember the lighting, or I remember how good the food was, or it kind of all plays together in a really interesting mix. In terms of prioritizing, I know we're talking about design, and I'll get to that point in a second because it's so important. And just like we had the experience we shared together with Jen and Brad, tailoring is so huge. I mean, so huge.
Yeah.
But I would say for couples who are planning a wedding and then, of course, incorporating those elements, really start with finding those right people that can take that vision to life and make it better than you even thought. Because ultimately, you want to be the bride and the groom, you want to be the couple getting married, showing up on the wedding day. Everything's done for you. You've done all the sweating, you've done all the worry,
The
but
work is
you've
done.
kept it the work is done. You've kept it in such capable hands. And I say primarily it starts with your planner. I think all couples, the very first thing they should be doing is getting in touch with a planner who really has design sensibilities or knows the resources to create that. Because again, planning and logistics is one thing, but it has to be, perfectly paired with experience and feeling and mood and flow. And so a good planner is going to have a great balance of both. And I think money should go there first, because once a good planner knows these things, they're able to then allocate from the budget the more meaningful aspects of the wedding that will create that impact and that feeling. So, whether it is floral heavy or maybe more experience heavy, or maybe it's location that is paramount. All these things start to come together when a couple's able to say, this is our vision. This is the feeling we're going for. This is the experience. And then the vendor team, because they do this all day, every day, can take that, run with it, and make it better than they've even thought of. And then, of course, when it comes to those design choices, is to be thoughtful. It's not necessarily more is better. Thoughtful pieces, thoughtful installations, florals. And then, of course, when it comes to what they're wearing, that's so important. You're talking about the identity of a bride, right? Is held within the dress in some ways. It's a
Preaching to the choir.
transformative
Yep.
thing. Yeah, there you go. It's a transformative thing that I see as a photographer. It's not the function of putting a dress on, it's that transition from, girlfriend, fiance, partner into the bride.
Wow.
And there's typically women there who have gone through that process, seeing this happen, feeling their own feelings about it, sharing it with the bride to be. It's an amazing moment. And the dress, it holds on symbolically to so much. So it has to be well thought out. It's got to fit right. It's got to move right. It's got to, in many ways, be an extension of her personality as the bride and how she can see herself in that. And definitely, I think that's where you come into, even refine that process and refine that vision that she has for her own dress, because it can it can look good on a rack, it could look good on a hanger and in the salon, but on the body it's a different thing. And to have your eye really bring out even small details that may not have been noticed at first, again, it enhances the experience. And even more so for the camera, because we get to see more detail, more definition, more dynamics in terms of how the dress fits and flows and moves. Because A dress on a hanger to photograph, it's cool. It's a document though. The dress on the bride, it's 1,000% better because
Yeah.
she's connected to it and there's life in it. And then we want to see that happen. And we're usually telling our bride, let's move, let's dance, let's do something because we want to see that and give her a moment to feel it out.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think something like similar to what you keep coming back to when people come in, wanting their dress altered, let's say, I personally don't think alterations are a black and white type of thing. I want to feel out the bride and like, are you a beauty is pain type of girl? I want to look incredible no matter what it costs, like what uncomfortability I have to deal with. Or are you the type of bride that wants to be able to move and dance and not worry about things being too tight or this or that? So like you want to come back to, for in your case, the couple, for me, the bride, and think about what do you want to experience in this dress? What is the most important thing to you? Because I know if something, like for some brides, like if something doesn't look right, they're never going to feel comfortable because they're self-conscious about something. So maybe it does, maybe
Yeah.
we have to sacrifice comfort, like physical comfortability a little bit just to achieve the like confidence that you need, that then will translate into the photography too. Because I want the bride to be fully comfortable and confident in the most important dress they will wear in their life. And something else you
100%.
mentioned, yeah.
Yeah.
And then what else you mentioned, like keep coming back to the couple. I keep asking you, to define maybe specific questions for me, but you keep coming back to like, well, what does the couple want to feel? What does the couple want to experience on the wedding day? And not being like, oh, you have to get the expensive chairs because that just looks amazing in the photos. But what you keep coming back to is just, what does the couple want to experience and how do they want to feel on the wedding day? Which I love. That's a true wedding vendor right there. I love it.
Well, it's also a qualifying question that I talk to potential couples about. I try to engage them about what this day is going to mean to them, not the photos. They've already reached out, so they like the photos.
Yeah,
That's not a
yeah,
question anymore, right? That's good. Step one is checked. Step two is now connecting as, not only just a vendor person and then a potential part of your day, but, photography and videography is literally shoulder to shoulder. We are with them
yeah.
all day
Hmm.
long, and we're entrusted both with their memories and how the day unfolds, but create an experience and having them feel comfortable and confident going in. That's huge, absolutely huge, because you want them, again, to feel free to be themselves and trust that we've got it. But it's so important
Absolutely.
to deliver on that. It's more than just an image you're going to create or you know a still life you're going to photograph.
Yeah. What sorts of couples do you think you attract as a wedding photographer? What type of bride and grooms do you think works best with your photography style? It's probably a hard one.
Yeah, I think personally, I pride myself on the fact that I think everyone has a unique vision for their day. I would say I like a little bit of everything. I like
A
I
little
like couples
diversity with your
who,
couples.
yeah, who have, like I mentioned earlier, have a unique vision for their day. Whether that's a venue I've been at 1,000 times or something completely new and different. I don't know if I answered my style as much earlier, but that has a huge impact on the type of clientele that I work with. And ultimately, throughout the years, I've been a slave to trends and different photo, gimmicks and things like that. But the older I get and the more I've been doing this, I really I don't want to insert myself too much. This is their day, their memories. I want to be a caretaker of that. And that means treading lightly. That means honoring what was there and how it looked and how it felt, and being true to color, being true to feeling. I think we keep talking about feeling and experience,
Hmm.
but the photos have to reflect that.
Yeah.
And some things are not going to be every couple's favorite thing to highlight. So I have to know that too.
Yeah.
Like if they're going more modest on decor because they really are looking more so for either the venue that they want to enhance and highlight, then I know not to spend too much time there, focus more on how people are engaging with that space or with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all nuanced, even though there's a lot of similarities from, weddings. And I would say cross culturally across the globe, right? Two people are coming together, committing. There's usually a celebration after.
Yeah.
There's usually a few people they love, and it's fun, right? But I think the couples that I attract and that I like working with are trying to connect deeper. Yes, they're having a wedding. Yes, there's a ceremony of some sort, commitment and a celebration, but the points in between matter and how it feels and what they want to experience and share. When they can define that, I think that's really, really important for me as the vendor to like be inspired by. So I want to hear that. If they can talk about that at length, then I'm inspired. And that's typically the type of clientele I want to work with. If they're like, oh, we're just kind of doing it for the family, or we just kind of want a big party, and they can't really define what this day means to them, or kind of those kind of deeper things, then we're probably not a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay, because they're going to find someone who is
Yeah.
and who can deliver on that. And that's so important.
Mm-hmm.
So, my style is really in a beautiful artistic way representing what was there and how it felt. And I think those couples that are looking for something that is honest, and this is feedback I've heard. It's
Mm-hmm.
honest, it's pure, it looks exactly like it was like when it
Like
was
you
there.
said.
Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
it's in a beautiful way.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the variety. And even though I have a brand and I have a style, I'm not trying to fit couples into that, if that makes
Gotcha.
sense.
Yeah.
Like I really want them to shine. I want their event to speak for itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, oh, that's Nate's signature photo he does for every couple. I don't
Gotcha.
know. It's that kind of is not as inspiring when
Yeah.
you're going to do it for everybody, because, well, then they're not unique anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Do you see any wedding photography trends coming either this year and next year that you see is going to be highlighted?
Yeah, I think it's really more focusing on what I would call modern luxury and or accessible luxury. So it's like things that are beautiful and well thought out, but they're natural. They're in a moment. They're kind of aspirational. I think we've seen it enough from the very, very highly curated blogs, the light and the airy, and it's almost a still life,
Yeah, like staged,
the
like less staged maybe.
way less stage. And I get
Yeah.
this all the time for couples when we talk. They're like, I know we have to do some pose stuff for the family. They always kind of default to saying, I know we have to,
Yeah, yeah.
but they readily, explain, however, we want most of this to be in a moment, to have a candid feel. And yet, like you mentioned, you see luxury and a regal feel in my work. Well, there's a balance to that, because sometimes in a moment doesn't mean it's really going to serve either the couple or the style or the feeling
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a balance that I'm noticing
Mm-hmm.
of really intentional images, but they're kind of fun. They're in a moment. They're not technically perfect, but they speak to
Yeah.
so much more about the feeling and experience. But they happen to be really beautiful.
Yeah.
And they happen to have really great styling, and they happen to have, really aspirational, inspiring kind of either design elements or background or venues. So that's really interesting to see from, an imagery kind of background. Experientially, I think the trend is to reduce guest counts. Like,
I love that.
get it down to the
Get it
VIPs,
down. Yes.
get it down. And I think that is it's so good, because it opens up so much more potential, better venue choices, more resources for styling, more resources for extending the experience. So we're talking rehearsal and welcome parties. We're talking, day after sessions and or, you know, kind of making almost a destination feeling out of that.
Hmm.
We talked earlier about the book tower. That's like a place that's got all these different places and spaces and restaurants. And I mean, you can make a whole weekend out of it if you
Hmm.
wanted to.
Hmm.
So I think that that's also, it's happening, but in the Midwest, it kind of trickles down a little bit later. But I think couples should think about if we can really pare that down in terms of guest count, we have now more resource in terms of budget to extend the experience. And to extend the experience only means you've got more chances to celebrate. And we really don't do a lot of celebrating in life. When we're born, when we get married, and unfortunately, usually when we die, is when all the people come back together.
Yeah.
And it's such a
Yeah.
cliche to say that, but it's so true because
Yeah.
life is so incredibly busy.
Yeah.
We're carving our own niche, we're blazing our own path, and then we don't stop and slow down and celebrate. So a wedding is such an amazing catalyst to get people together that you actually like and you love and you want to have a moment with. So why not just draw that out? Make it a
Yeah.
little more intentional, a little more engaging by reducing guest count and really going out with, experience.
That's fabulous.
Would you do
So,
it all over again, right?
right.
Go
Oh
somewhere really
man.
fun that you want to just honeymoon at and just bring, a few of your friends and family with you and have just a
Abs-
crazy good time. Why
Yeah.
not?
That's all the winter brides I work with. A majority of them are going to the Caribbean. And I'm
Right.
just like, that sounds very nice. That sounds like all fun, very little planning. I was thinking.
Right, right. Not realistic. You know, I'm a Detroit photographer and have been the whole time. And we don't have the luxury of perfect weather. We don't have sprawling mountainside vistas. We have what I would consider very difficult circumstances because there's a lot of boundaries that are set in terms of location and what you can and cannot do based on weather and just opportunity. And so that forces us, or at least it did for me, to say, well, how can we make it beautiful no matter where we're at? How can we make it fun no matter what we're doing and capture that experience and that, feeling? So we have to fight for it.
Yeah.
We really, I think Detroit and Ohio, all of our Midwest, people who are usually indoors. Yes, we drool at all the amazing things we see in our feed about these beautiful destination places, like you mentioned, the Caribbean and Europe and stuff. That's not always attainable or doable. So how do we still like honor what we're able to do here? And
Mm-hmm.
that's really, just giving our all and enthusiastically wanting to be there for our couples
Yeah.
and deliver, not just on the end result of what we do, like images, but really creating a great space for them to be themselves and have fun. So, as much as the trends come and we're influenced by so much, I think we can still have those sensibilities and mindfulness and thoughtfulness about what that's really trying to share with us, which is experience and something of aspiration. We can define it for ourselves here too. So, as much as I think that sounds great to go travel and destination, it's not always realistic for most people, but they can still have that mindset even here in the D, as we say.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right, we're going to be wrapping up here in a moment, but I want to hear what is next for J&N Studios.
What is next? It's really just refinement. It really is. I don't, I'm my own worst critic, so I don't look back and be like, oh, that was the best thing I ever did. I'm always looking at it through a very critical eye and refining either, how I actually photograph, or more likely the beginning and the after in terms of service and process and things like that. I'm in a place right now where I have the absolute best couples,
Yeah,
and I love every one of them. And that's a pinch me moment when I can be excited for every couple, and can't wait to be with them on their wedding day. And so I'm doing something right, I think, in that regard. How do I
absolutely.
make it even better? And so that's my constant thought. I would like to do some more traveling. So perhaps that's something that I'll start to open up a little bit more. But I've got a lovely family that I'd rather spend all my time with. So I
Yeah.
have to be very choosy about what I do take,
Hmm.
and just looking forward to continue to push myself in terms of, what feeds my soul that I can then share back in terms of, what I can do photographically, or in terms of my service, with my couples. Because if you love what you do, you got to keep loving it. And that means education and being inspired and taking little breaks and, regrouping and getting excited for what's next. So I think the consistency is kind of comforting, to keep doing it, keep doing your best. So I don't have these huge lofty goals of like, oh, well, I'm going to go here, I'm going to do that,
It's like you've
because,
already gotten there, Nate. You're in a really
well,
good place.
I do feel like I'm in a good place.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm sitting back.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's just
You're
those
not
little
getting too comfortable.
processes. No, no, you can't. I'm
Yeah.
sure you see that within your own work. Like
Yeah.
how can you make it better? How can you refine what you do and create a better experience for your
Never
couples,
stop learning.
your brides?
Hmm.
Yeah, never stop learning.
Yeah.
So I think in a nutshell, that's it. Just kind of keep moving forward, keep pushing, keep
Hmm.
refining, and finding ways to be inspired. And I think that all trickles back down, and how I can care for my couples and give them the best of me.
That's great. I love it. And where can our listeners find you? Can you list off like your Instagram and your website?
Sure. A website, J&N Studios.com. The and is spelled out. And the same for Instagram at J&N Studios. And that's it. That's enough to
Yeah.
maintain. So
Likewise,
no other
likewise.
platforms, right? Yeah.
And if someone is interested in working with you, what should their first steps be?
You know, one, look through the work, and if you see yourself in it, definitely reach out, and reach out as soon as you can, because the booking season, especially now, we're getting into, the big holidays, which is typically engagement time. So get on that pretty quickly, and then be willing to have a conversation. Be willing to kind of share, what you're excited for, and how can the photography fit into that and support that. So, through those two avenues, my site, Instagram,
Hmm.
definitely tons of ways to reach out and get in touch with me.
Fabulous. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Nate. I'm sure especially our engaged brides and grooms right now are probably loving this episode. So I'm excited to share this with them.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thanks for the
much.
chance to speak out. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nate. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode has allowed you to approach the world with greater confidence in your own personal style. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out through email or the inquiry form on the website. I hope you are all ready to go and get dressed up. I look forward to sharing more dressing up tips with you in future episodes. Thanks so much.